I hope we've fixed your microphone.
I hope so. If you can't fix the DA, at least you can fix my microphone.
So you were saying, I mean, we were talking about these values that the ANC, I mean, the DA always puts forward: freedom, fairness, opportunity, and diversity as the driving, as values that drive the agenda and the program. And the point you are making is that virtually every party has those values.
Not only every party, every South African has those values. Our constitution has those values. How we approach those values and how you think those values are instrumentalized through policy is actually the question. Now, the perspective they have taken, and it's not true that there is a set of principles that bind them. There aren't. On one day, and remember, Musi Maimane himself was not sure. In fact, I am puzzled for why he actually entered this party, because this was a party at the time at which he may have become a member, which did not believe in the welfare state, which didn't actually believe in social grants, which didn't think race should or ought to be a proxy for addressing disadvantage, who didn't in fact think that municipal entities should be within the command of the state. In fact, they were classically neoliberal, not just liberal, they were neoliberal, because they wanted to unbundle all of the municipal entities. They wanted unbundling in the state. They wanted restructuring. They wanted a smaller state. They wanted lower welfare, and so on. So all the supply side economics and the economic solutions that they want, a massive private sector, big privatization projects, those are what they actually believed in. And I'm not sure that many of the members who then did subscribe to or did join the DA actually subscribed to those things, because that's what they believed. Now, when they are in government, in some cases, not only do not believe in unbundling municipal entities, they believe in bringing it under state control, something that Kosatu was arguing for a long time, from 1999. So it's fairly contradictory. Then, on one day, they accept that social grants should be a measure of transformation, and other days they don't believe that that should be the case. On one day they believe that race should be used, so should BE, or another day they don't believe that. And now, of course, that's an ideological tussle in the party. That's appropriate to have differences of opinion. But when there are differences of opinion which are fundamental on the basis of principle, then, like you would ask the question in the ANC, why are some people in that party, when they don't believe or subscribe to the same things, why are some of these people in the DA? And those people must ask themselves those questions, whether it's the Black Caucus, whether it's the 1959 group, whether it's liberals, wherever they may be, have got to ask themselves why they're in the party. My view is that what unites them is everything that they are against. So they are for everything that they are against. That's the only thing that keeps them together.
Well, let's take two of those values. Let's take fairness. They don't believe in a race approach to address the injustices of the past. Now, how fair is that? We know that black people as a group have been disadvantaged previously. We know that white people as a group have been advantaged previously. So if you look at the two groups, you can see today that white people are wealthier compared to blacks. Now, how fair is it to say you don't believe in specific policies that are meant to make sure that you address the injustices of the past, which injustices affected black people? That's number one. Number two, the diversity as a value. I mean, there's a whole storm now in the DA around Musi Maimane. I mean, even the blind can see that this thing has got to do with race. Maimane is black. The group that was sent to see him, to ask him to resign, is actually white. I'm not aware of a black person who was part of that group. If you look at the faction called the Institute of Race Relations that has been masterminding all of this, there's a bunch of white people. So you can see that they actually don't believe in diversity. So it's one thing to say we believe in fairness and diversity and all of that, but it's quite another to act against exactly those values.
Well, Musi Maimane continues to say he believes in those values and the DA's approach to everything. Incidentally, he's the one they want to hold responsible for their below par performance in the May 8 elections.
But why let's be honest about it. the small percentage of voters who have left the DA, they actually voted for the Freedom Front. Who are these people? We know that they are white, right? Why is the DA not worried about the fact that black people are not voting for the party if they truly believe in diversity? The debate shouldn't be the small group of whites who have gone to vote for the Freedom Front. The debate should be about the majority of black people who are not voting for the DA, right? That should be the worry, right? But they are worried about a small percentage of whites who have gone to vote for the Freedom Front. That tells me that actually the DA does not care about diversity. If they cared, they were supposed to prioritize the majority of South Africans. And who are the majority of South Africans? Blacks, not whites.
Well, Helen Zille says that she believes, or insists she believes, in diversity. She is being credited with growing the party from where he took it when Tony Leon was the leader, up until she handed it over to Mmusi Maimane. And if anything, it is Mmusi Maimane who has now taken it back. So I'm now here to fix it. And that's the reason she wants to be the Federal Council chairperson.
Look, I don't know if it's that crude, to be honest, because the reality is that Maimane did grow the party in the 2016 election. Of course, they had to go into partnerships, in inverted commas, in 3 of the metros at some stage, and then, of course, one fell through.
Well, they dislodged the ANC, but they still didn't get...
Sure, but they had to go into partnership. That's what they relied on. I think the degree to which those partnerships have actually come to hurt them is underestimated, and it hasn't hurt them only amongst white voters. So it's not just white voters who are unhappy with this partnership with the EFF. There are a significant number of black voters. And from 2011, bear in mind, from the 2011 local government elections, in black townships, the DA has been growing on average 2.5 percentage points in each election. So they were growing from 2011 amongst black voters. Now the reality is that there is a reversal, and that much is true. And that reversal in 2019 happened under Maimane's leadership.
But should we not credit the ANC? Should we underestimate what the departure of Jacob Zuma did for the ANC?
Of course it does,
example?
because the
strong showing are better than expected by the EFF.
Here's the point that I'm making. Stronger showing by the EFF, but that's due to some voters from the ANC migrating that way, and a fair number of ANC voters staying away. But the stay away didn't only hurt the ANC, it also hurt the DA. And the DA was hurt by a stay away amongst those voters, some of them who are black, who are unhappy about the prevarication of the DA and its leadership on the question of proxy, of using race as a proxy for disadvantage and addressing it in that way, firstly. Secondly, they were unhappy with the inconsistency on which the DA was applying its own internal rules. One set of rules for some people, another set of rules for other people. This comes through on whether you're talking about the use of social media, tweeting about colonialism, tweeting about other things, Facebooking quotes from P.W. Botha, or whether it was some members can vote under or argue for a secret ballot in Parliament but not in local councils. So this kind of variable treatment of its own members on the basis of its own rules is what puts people off. Second is that third, I'm even losing count, the DA behaves in an entirely inconsistent and sometimes opportunistic way. Because one day, as I said earlier, they believe one thing, and another day they believe something else. So no one's quite sure what they believe in and what they stand for.
Do people I'm not allowed to chip in, but I can't resist this after what Ibrahim just said. I mean, you've seen now over the past few days, maybe a couple of weeks even, people like Herman Mashaba seems to have found their voices. They are now keen to speak on race matters or racism.
But they should be asking themselves why they're in this party if the core set of beliefs are not what accord with them. Why are they there?
Well, here is the thing about the DA. At some point, Helen Zille got some black people to believe that the DA was a party for all South Africans. In other words, it was no longer a party for whites. So Herman Mashaba and others who joined the DA actually were convinced that the party was moving in that progressive direction. They can see now that Mmusi Maimane is under attack, especially on flimsy grounds. I mean, if you look at the Toyota Fortuner saga, it was donated by a white criminal, by the way, right? But now the person who is under attack for that is a black leader. So they can see that the real agenda of the DA has nothing to do with embracing the unity of all South Africans, but it's a white agenda. So that's why they are speaking and defending themselves as black leaders. But I wanted to come back to a point that Ibrahim made earlier about the DA losing black voters because voters are not happy about the relationship between the EFF and the DA. I don't buy that. I'll tell you why I don't buy that.
Well, no, it's not. Hold on. It's not just losing those voters. It's the potential voters who stayed away. So the point is a little more subtle than just losing black voters.
Yeah, anyway, here's the thing about the elections this year. There are two parties that have gained. It's very clear if you look at the numbers. Is the EFF and the Freedom Front, right? The ANC has lost, the DA has lost. Now, if you say that black voters are not happy about the relationship between the EFF and the DA, how do you explain the growth of the EFF, right? You can't. Now, we know it means that the black voters, they haven't, supposedly who have not voted for the DA, have not gone to vote for the ANC. They've gone to vote for an extreme party like the EFF. Who are those who voted for the Freedom Front? It's very clear, it's white, it's not blacks. I don't think that there are black people who didn't vote for the DA who voted for the Freedom Front. For me, it's very clear. The growth of the EFF, it is black voters who voted for the EFF. The growth of the Freedom Front Plus, it is white voters who voted
for
the
Prince, in a proportional representation system, if your voters, potential voters, stay away from voting for you, and they don't necessarily vote for another party, the proportions start to change. It's not necessarily a shift in voter sentiment. This is only testable in a ward or constituency election. In a pure PR system, which is our national and provincial election, the stay away of those potential voters actually matters for the way in which the proportions show out.
Can you correlate that with what the EFF has gotten?
No. Yes, but the EFF may have picked up votes from disgruntled ANC members. We don't know whether it's DA or potential black voters who may have voted DA who swung to vote to the EFF.
But that's pure speculation, Ibrahim.
No, but
anyway. Okay, let's go to Ken. The question now is whether the DA can, from this point onwards, let's just say, for argument's sake, they're able to gather at the weekend and agree among themselves that they can still craft a future together.
Well, I doubt if that will happen, given that there is...
You doubt if it will happen or if it's possible?
I doubt if it will happen. It is possible. But if you look at the agenda of the meeting, there is a report of a panel, right? The stuff that has been leaked to the public in terms of the content of the report tells me that it is not going to happen at this meeting, because essentially those panel members, apparently, they are recommending that Musi must step down. They are recommending that the coalition governments in Tswana and Johannesburg and elsewhere must be dissolved. If they were to go down that route, let me tell you, the DA as we have known it will cease to exist. So I don't see it practically happening.
Will it matter if an Athol, Trollip or a Helen Zille wins the Federal Council chair?
In my view, yes and no. Yes, because they both have very distinct personalities and political personalities, so to speak. So they will bring different kinds of strengths. What they have in common is that they both know where the DA comes from. They know what compromises were made, even when the DA was formed at the turn of the century as an amalgamation of everything that was against the ANC. Now that you don't have such a strong sentiment, they're going to have to craft something else. But at least they both know where the DA comes from and what the DA ought to be about, more or less. What they can't afford to do is, in spite of what the report says, get rid of my money, because the party has now taken itself into this cul-de-sac where if they do get rid of the black leader, the first black leader, it then falls on the back of saying, look, you tried this weird, capricious experiment with Mampele Rampele and That blew up 2 days later. You then had Joe Seremani, you kicked him out before that. You then had Lindiwe Mazibuko saga, that was out. You victimized other young black leaders. You had the Patricia de Lille saga. So this is clearly about, and it will give credence to what Prince is saying, perhaps in much more extreme terms, as he's wanted to say, that there is a racial agenda. That might not be true. But what they will do, whether it's Athol Trollip or whether it's Helen Zille, is provide the kind of consistent backstop that a leader like Mmusi Maimane does require. Because he is, by far, I think so far, the weakest leader of the DA, both in terms of its orientation, who it is, how it postures itself, and how it applies its own internal rules inside the DA.
But will it matter? I mean, will the outcome, depending on whether Helen Zille or Athol Trollip wins, will that outcome tell us anything about what to expect beyond Sunday? In other words, will an Athol Trollip win mean that those who support Mmusi remain in a much stronger position than, say, those who support a Helen Zille, for example?
Let's begin with Helen. Say Helen wins on Sunday. I think they're voting on Sunday. This is what's going to happen. The DA is going to suffer a very serious image crisis. One, Helen Zille is a liability to the party as we speak. Her toxic tweet around colonialism, it has offended black people. And in fact, it has fed into the narrative that the DA is a racist party. So if you have Helen Zille winning, in other words, occupying a leadership role, prominent leadership role in the party, the DA will have to live with that kind of liability. And it's not going to recover under Helen Zille. If Trollip wins, I think the DA would be in a better position, because I think he's aware of the potential implications of offending the black voters by disrupting the leadership of Mmusi Maimane. So he would try and be as close as possible to Mmusi Maimane in order to nurse the potential damage that would arise from a clear open war with a black leader. So the outcome, whether it's Helen or it is Trollip, matters. And I think the DA must think about that.
Well, in some ways, I mean, Zille has to rehabilitate herself because Mmusi Maimane is her project. You know, I think the DA members will be asking themselves, when he was elected at the time at which he went up against Wilmot James, and they chose charisma over content, whether they should have gone for content over charisma in Wilmot James. And that
I think I still remember that.
I wonder if they, well, the members certainly must, because it's clearly come to haunt them, and if they don't, they should. And Helen Zille now has the opportunity to redeem herself because she backed this horse at that time. She backed the charisma over content. So she must now take her project and make sure that it actually works.
But she's getting there, by the way, to kick out her own project.
Well, perhaps not. Well, she can't.
Not to ride the horse further.
But if she's federal chair, she can't unless there is an actual elective conference. Well,
she can start line her own project.
But then that's up to the party. And then they go at their next Congress. The members will decide what they must do.
Well, it's not always members who decide. They actually engineer these things.
Gentlemen, thanks to both of you coming through this evening. Ibrahim Fakir and Prince Mashele. Still ahead.